Yeah, I figured I'd do a quick mock-up. Again, it's just the battery cover that I've bolted up, but just to try the pyro fuse bits. And as you can see, I'm going to be making some adjustments and moving some of these around. This bit is going to completely disappear because this bit's high enough to cover the frame inside. That's going to go down as well. But to be honest, even if it didn't, it does just about clear the height. That's the seat on its rearmost position on the runner. I was a bit optimistic in the last video about how close the seat can go to that frame. Didn't really account for the height of the cover of the penthouse. But still, I think this is still going to be enough. I'm not going to weld any of the seat mounts or anything in place until I get the body on and just confirm it's going to be enough. But I'm relatively confident. And definitely with that pyro cover, that should be plenty of space for the passenger seat. Don't think that'll be a problem at all. I had to throw the passenger seat in. It's set a little bit further back before I powered down, so it's just in a slightly better position, and I'm gonna have to hold it down at the front, so I haven't done the mounts. So if I put my weight down there, I think actually there's probably enough space to move the seat back to equivalent to the driver's seat. So you can see that relative to that rubber bit. It's just in front. Actually, it's nearer flush. It's very similar. Not much in it. So, in fact, it's probably due to the angle of the backrest, actually. But I was having another look at the battery, and actually, worst case, I could probably stagger the whole pyro assembly back quite a lot. There's quite a lot of space behind it. Means it would have to go up and over this frame, but could probably go back a couple of inches, which would be loads. But I think actually that's probably okay. So I think I'll park this for the moment and crack on with doing all the connections, lengthening the pyro wiring from the penthouse, and get it into a drivable state, and then I'll chuck the body on the top and actually see where everything sits. So finalising these main battery connections. So my idea of using these holes here, I think it's just going to be too tight to get down over behind the seat, and then as you can see from the other side, there's quite a big drop. So I've had a bit of a rethink, and this, what you see here, so I've actually made up one of these dummy posts to go into the penthouse. That's come out really nice. Obviously I'm going to put grommets around all these, but they are drilled and deburred. So that goes through. This is all nicely well behind the back, the seat back, and then that comes in nice and low. I was worried about putting too much strain on the battery posts and everything, so I'll cut an area of this out so the cable can drop down nice and gradually, and then that, which I've now drilled out, will obviously go on the end, this end of the cable. So nice short run and really low profile as well. In fact, I think this would actually end up being below the level of this cover, but I will, I think, make some sort of plastic cover surrounding. Not that there'll be a load on it, but just for my peace of mind, I don't want metal close to the main terminals. So that's the first battery post cut down. So these I drilled out to the 18mm, and then that was still too tight. These measure roughly 18mm, but they're not perfectly round. So I clenched this up, drilled at 18mm again to get a bit more clearance, and it was still tight. So I've been in there with my Dremel and the little barrel sander attachment, and that's just right. So it ends up about flush with my lid. So I'll definitely make a little cover out of plastic, a separate insert piece to go on the top, just to maintain access. Probably big enough as well so I can get a spanner in to undo this. Obviously I'll make it safe by undoing the pyro fuse anytime I'm in there. And just to show the other side, this is my preferred method of chopping down the posts. I don't want any risk of any swarf getting in the battery. So the cover's acting like a nice guide, and it's taped up, it's double taped up. I've taped it up underneath and underneath the cover. Pain in the arse there. It's a Sawzall blade. So mocking up the harnesses again in the car. So that was the original one. So that sort of bends the stress relief loop underneath. And you can see my lines there. So it's just over 200mm that I'm going to be extending that. And that's maybe on the long side, but we'll see. But yeah, take the opportunity to put this abrasive and protection on while I do the crimping. Let's get some of these 70mm cable, which is what most of this is, I think, I hope. We'll see. And one extended motor harness. It turned out well underneath. I did end up using the 70 and then the 50 crimp tools just to go a bit harder. I think the wire size, or the cable size, was in between 50 and 75mm. But yeah, it's nice and strong. I did try and pull it apart, couldn't, but it's a nice clean fixing joint. That's the first tricky phase. So that's getting a nice witness of the bead of silicone. I've used Tiger Seal. And I went round all the edges with isopropyl alcohol to get it nice and clean first. Promotes adhesion. So now I'll go round. I haven't got the original seal, so I'll put a lick of silicone around the inserts and bolt all these down. And that's all the centre fixings in. Well, I say all. Slight cock up. So this one is the same size as these middle ones. I didn't realise originally the front of this I-beam, which would have been over here, was drilled and tapped for a bigger plug. So I've had to swap out the middle one, which wasn't actually used on my car. So I've just cut out an aluminium disc and glued it in to seal it. and then I've moved that over here, so I'll have a smaller fixing, slightly. I think a 10 M10 instead of a 12. But to be honest, this one was quite close to a little reinforcing rib in the floor, so that's no bad thing to give me a bit more clearance. And just, yeah, the cover is so thin, it was a bit wobbly. But wife gave me a quick hand to lower it down into position, and I've just got various clamps just to make sure it's nice and flat as the glue sets off. So I'll leave that overnight now and maybe think about fitting it next. Okay, so trying to remember where all the wiring goes, folding it back from the front. I've had to weld in a couple of new earths, and just figuring out where everything goes. Let's keep that out of the way. That's for the B-pillar camera. Yeah, see, just doing a bit of painting. Just for me, looks a bit tidier. It'll all be covered up, but the charge ports. Lots of miscellaneous stuff back here, antenna. Yeah, so I'm running out of excuses not to put the battery in now. So I think that's the next job. Right, ready to lift up. So I was doing this solo, so it was a bit back and forth, a lot to get everything lined up. But seems like everything is good. Lost a couple of bolts, but I'm sure they'll turn up. Only a couple, so. Yeah, time to lift it up. So, time to get my workbench back. Down. Still pretty high. I guess once I start building it up, it'll get a bit heavier and settle. Sod's law. I would forget something. Luckily it's the gasket, which wasn't too bad. I just loosened all the bolts, dropped it 5mm and slid it in from the top. Would have been a lot harder with the full penthouse. But here we go. Okay, so knocking up a little prototype design for a cable cover. Knocking up that piece, so I'm going to bond that to the cover. And this has got a nice little locating lip. Obviously I have to make this a lot bigger to get access to the battery clamp. And then afterwards that just slots back down and bolts in. Depending on the exact position, I might have to tweak the position of that fixing. I was going to TIG some nuts underneath this sheet. But yeah, that's nice and low profile. I mean, there was loads of space under the back seat. This sits underneath the actual the centre sort of radiuses up anyway, so loads of space. Yeah, bit of finessing, but I think the overall shape is about right. But yeah, I'll just double check when I've made up the first cable. So I've been doing various little extra jobs. One thing I did see on a salvage rebuilds channel, who did like a track Model 3, they needed to keep the rear seat belts in place. So to stop the warnings, they just extracted this little switch and plugged it in. So I've done that for the 3 rear seat belts. It will get lost when it's all wrapped up. Yeah. Time to start lengthening and making up cables. So extending the shunt wires. Thanks Sid for the note. It wasn't immediately obvious, so I stripped it back a bit further to find out which of the twisted pairs are. And actually the Tesla wiring diagram is really good, and you can just about see the printed label numbering, so just double checking. So these 2 pairs I'll twist and extend. I've already done the shunt, sorry, the pyro fuse, so that's ready to go, and that's twisted, and I'll also twist these ones for the BMS daisy chain. Right, so that's all the cabling to the penthouse extended. So we've got 2 sides for the BMS, the shunt here, and the pyro fuse. So obviously I've got to make up the main battery cables, and just doing a couple of jobs, little jobs. So here is the curtain airbag. So I snipped off the resistor, sorry, the connector offset like that, and I'll just sleeve it with some heat shrink. Thanks. Oops. So yeah, had to reroute some of the cabling. The PCS connector up there wouldn't reach when the harness was underneath the penthouse bars, but it's all kind of falling into place quite nicely. I've only had to weld in 1 new stud for an earth there, but we'll see. Obviously there's a lot loose still, like cameras and antenna that go into the roof. But I'll tick them off when I get there.